Jimmy, welcome to the Thriving in the Age of Disruption podcast series. We've been talking about having you be a changemaker guest here. And so I'm excited that we are having this conversation this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Ramesh, and also to the team. Also to hello to everyone. Greetings from the capital of Vietnam. So my name is Jimmy Pham. I'm Australian, Vietnamese, Korean. I was raised in Australia, and I run Vietnam very first social enterprise. So disruption is my middle name. I take the most disadvantaged, I guess, the most underserved young adults, and then take them on a path to transformation through vocational training and life skills, holistic training. But furthermore, is to build a community around the ripple effect. Means once help others, and that through that can have the ripple effect of people helping other people and all that kind of stuff, empowerment. And yeah, so to this date, we have over 2,000 graduates and trainees in the program. And we have a very busy couple of restaurants that we run where our students do their practical training. Further on to that is trying to build more social impact around ecosystems, from women empowerment to women leaderships to vocational training to food rescue program. It's kind of an ecosystem that all kind of intertwine with each other. Key message being is that everyone deserves a seat at the table, which is an all-inclusive community that we're trying to build through our social impact work.
What really impressed me is this whole entrepreneurial journey that you've taken, but in the social impact space. In my podcast, I talk about the entrepreneurial mindset, which I say that, is someone who is being resourceful, who is able to manage uncertainty as well as take risks and create value. Yeah. And obviously, that's what you've done, but you've done that with a social impact piece alongside. Look back onto your own journey 30 years ago. How did you get started? Why did you think about doing something entrepreneurial in the social sector?
I think the first thing, Doctor, is more of a journey, is everything grow. You don't let your failures, and we have a lot of failures, defines you. That's what happened to me. I came to Vietnam, and in a time where Vietnam was a third world country, where 80% of the population lives under $1 a day. And the residue from the war left a lot of street kids. And I saw a need and I acted on it. And this is going back to this whole entrepreneurial mindset, is that it was always the focus has always been that I want to be that change that I want to see in the world. And that for me was super, super important. We're celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. And I never moved away from that focus. Believe me, we got criticized where the first they ignore you, they laugh at you, and then they fight you, and then you win. I went through that very much that same journey where, I was ignored because I was too small. I worked in a space where, in the capital of Vietnam, where either at that time you were an NGO or you were a business. There's no such thing as a social mission. So because when I did that, I was under constant scrutiny because I have a motive, an agenda. And then I work with children as well, whole safeguarding around that. And I work in the space that everyone considered that you don't need education because everyone can cook. So why would you go through such a long period of 2 years training for those kids that can, you can pretty much turn over in 3 months. So all this was a journey of changing that mindset. Don't listen to what I say, but watch what I do. And it's pretty much like that. I keep on doing. And the testimonial for the success that we have today actually didn't come from because we had such great marketing. But the marketing itself comes from the beneficiaries, or the one that actually graduated and now so successful in their career that actually they look back with fond memories, and they are this great PR for you because they're the living proof that it can happen. And in the restaurant, 90% of our staff at the restaurant are alumni from the program. So this whole know one, teach one, and this ripple reminds you that this program is all about the testimonials of the ones who have succeeded.
You called out a couple of interesting things in sharing just now. And the first thing that struck me was how you recognized that need when you came to Vietnam 25, 30 years ago with the street kids and the fact that people were living with less than a dollar a day. To be able to convert that need into a business idea is also the second challenge, because a lot of us recognize there's a need. But then how did you go about converting that into a structure whereby you can actually solve a problem, big social problem, and at the same time make it sustainable? Because we now know that KOTO enterprises have been around for at least 25 years.
25 years now, yeah.
25 years, yes. So how did you go about doing that?
A lot of people were very surprised that I didn't have a hospitality background. I didn't have any of that. I'm just a tour guide, tourism background, who saw a need and acted on it.
Wow.
So when I came here, when I met those street kids that ultimately changed my life, I made a decision to come back. And 3 months later, I had $200 in my pocket. I had a job as a tour leader and a passion to make a difference. That began the journey of the old fable, give a man a fish today. And when you're young, Doc, and you're very arrogant and you think that you're not going to give money to NGOs, and you kind of so help on your own pocket. And that's what I did for 3 years. So this constant, everywhere I see, from Cambodia to Thailand to up in the hill tribe, kids that are impoverished or underserved, you give them money.
Yes.
And you fish every day, you take them out to eat, and then you put them through English classes without actually knowing the sense of the purpose of why you do and how the outcome. But I never in my wildest dream, I'm going to call it a dream, it's still a dream, is that I've started an organization that has such an incredible impact on so many levels. It was actually 3 years of doing that, giving someone a fish, and that transition from show them how to fish comes from those same kids that has taken me severely for a ride and told me that, look, we trust you now, so we're going to tell you the truth. And instead of giving up on them and all that kind of stuff, one needs to do their own reflection and say, that's right, because what I did was creating this dependency they have on me, right? So the next stage of our development was to build something more sustainable, is to give them a fishing rod so they can fish for themselves. And KOTO born out of that. Furthermore, it was never my intention to build a vocational training center. And I wanted something different. I wanted to think outside the box. And how the restaurant happened is because I didn't have, like, a lot of money back in Australia that I can register as an NGO. I didn't have the contacts and all that kind of stuff to be able to do all the things that NGO does. That time, NGOs, Oxfam and Save the Children, and they'll have a lot of money or a lot of international backing. I'm just a simple man who wants to do something different. So I started a restaurant because I thought hospitality is the most transferable skills you can give someone, that ultimately give them a job, right? And in order to do that, they have to make mistakes. They have to drop the tray. They have to break the glasses. They have to make terrible milkshakes. But ultimately, that will give them that kind of real hands-on experience that can give them that job. And that the logic was, everything was that straightforward. It wasn't very complicated. Oh my God, I'm going to start this multi-million-dollar organizations that help 300 kids at any one time. It wasn't that. We started with 9 kids, and then we went on to 20, and then over the years we built that up to the numbers that we have today.
You talked about at least the passion to wanting to make a difference, and you want to be the change you want to see in the world. We do a lot of work with people discovering, who am I, as in my purpose. And I think that's actually your purpose. And you were really clear at that point, what that was for you. And day in, day out, whether it was as a tour guide before you decided that you wanted to come back and do that 3-year first part of that pilot that you did, right, with the kids, whatever that got you up every day, that had you continue even when, you were disappointed or there wasn't enough money, was probably, I want to be the change I want to see in the world. Yeah. That's so powerful.
It is. It is. Can I tell you, Doc, after 25 years and nearly 30 years doing this, 25 with KOTO, Yesterday, I spoke to an MBA students from an American college, and one of the comment made was that you can see so obvious that you still talk with so much passion. And I truly believe that I'm the most luckiest person because I feel that 30 years I found a job that I actually don't have to work.
Yeah.
And that for me, I still love what I do. I love it with my life. And it's become not a job for me. It's my who I am and what I do. And I get so much from seeing that focus has never been. And trust me, through COVID at the age of disruptions and all the things that this podcast is titled, we have so many challenges, and especially COVID was that sign that tells you you've done enough. Let's go home, and you don't have to try anymore because you helped at that time. Over 1,500 kids already, right?
Mm.
But when you plant a seed, you just got to see it through. And KOTO is not that stage yet where you can just go and leave it. So yeah, so it's the focus and the passion is still incredibly there, and I think that is very important if you're going to do anything, whether it's for profit or not for profit.
That's right. To be able to connect with our purpose and to keep engaging with that with passionately.
Yeah.
Wow. You've obviously created many firsts with KOTO, whether it was in challenging the way people think around vocational training, even confronting teaching people hospitality skills, which people assumed at that point you don't have to go and learn it. You just do it because you do it the way you do it at home, and then to actually creating the intersection between business and social work coming together as a social enterprise. So when you look at the future, what's there for you?
There's a saying by the very famous Ho Chi Minh, which is a big hero for
Yes.
Vietnamese people here, and it says, study some more, and study forever. Learn some more and learn forever. And for me, it's like I grew up in poverty with a very large family. I was the youngest. I
Wow.
was one of those person that was not handsome. That's inherited by my brother and my brother. The smart one inherited by my older brother, and everything like that. It's not a bad thing. It was just one of those things where you're growing up and you don't succeed very much, right?
So that was the probability.
That's what's the probability. And this is where, how Asian families are, Doc, right?
Yeah.
They kind of predict your future and what
Yes.
the trajectory that you're going to be in. And I got my first university degree at 48, and I got my master's at 50, and I got my doctorate soon on the 9th of April
Wow.
at 52, right? And
Mm.
and it's not so at that stage of my life is no longer learning to get a career, but it's learning to grow yourself. And it's important for me when I tell my kids at KOTO is that education knowledge breaks the cycle of poverty, and I truly believe this, right? Is that you yourself have to be that example that you say. So if this is a guy who's the head of the organization, who's continued to learn, read books once a week, and do the things that to learn from other people, and that's thirst for knowledge, then that's when you can actually sit down and say to someone that this is actually you should do that, right?
Mm.
Like if you don't smoke, you tell them not to smoke, it's really difficult because you're a hypocrite. And
Yes.
that's to me is very important. I'm very aware of be a good example.
Mm.
How you go do examples, you have to lead by
Yeah.
example.
That's right. Oh, excellent. So congratulations, first of all, Dr. Jamie, on getting your honorary doctorate. I mean, that's really great. Awesome recognition by the community. Lifelong learning is now a necessary skill set for the future. Actually, it's been highlighted by many studies that if we are not doing that with the coming on of AI, human beings will become irrelevant. So it's good if we can take that on. You had started off by saying, don't let your failures define you. And you're someone who took on that attitude. I feel that there are two mindsets which are essential in today's age. And one is the entrepreneurial mindset. And the second one is a crisis ready mindset, whereby, you're sort of able to deal with the failures and setbacks that life serves you because you've no choice. But then the question is, do you fight, do you flee, or do you freeze, right?
Yeah.
And I think, you've had the opportunity to deal with failures and setbacks really powerfully because of the nature of work that you took on for the last 30 years. And I wanted you to perhaps share with us, how do you look at setbacks or failure? What practices do you have that makes you think that, it's not about giving up?
You're right. For me, resilience is going to be the key to overcoming any obstacles that present your way. If I have to look back in the 25 years, I can say that I'm constantly being presented with crisis or challenges. But along the way, halfway through the journey, you learn that it's all in the mindset and the attitude. And if you call it as oh my God, why me? I'm doing good things, and why does it happen to me? Then you let that kind of some challenges defines who you are, and then you're bound to make a lot of mistakes. But in the situation like this, you always have to keep calm, and you have a really good attitude of saying that that's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. And I'll give you a very specific example during COVID that really was shut down. The first one was the hospitality, which is where our kids do their practical training. The tourism industry was over $1.5 million revenue that literally went out the door overnight from our restaurants, right? Because we invest $10,000 per students in their journey with us to study free of charge. So that's why we have to come up with that kind of funds to be able to cover the operational costs, right? And the third one was education. So when you're working with kids that actually don't have a home or don't have families and things like that, it's really hard to say, well, can you go home now and come back when the COVID thing is over? So we made a decision collectively to continue KOTO school, but close the restaurant. Right? And the power that be, and also the faith that within, is that they're more important. When you see this as a family, if you're unemployed, you're not going to go and kick your children outside and say, I'm sorry, what do you want me to do? I don't have a job, so what do I do? But you just have to you have to go and borrow money from your friends and your family. You have to put your pride aside. And then you say, can you borrow money to get me through this? And so I can buy food for the kids and all that kind of stuff. And that's pretty much what happened to us.
Wow.
We lost our training school. We lost our restaurant that we've been running for 17 years. And then we literally got moved from one place to the other. It got so bad. I remember on this one particular day, it was 45 degrees outside. We moved to Echo Park, and they wouldn't register us because at that time, the peak of COVID was so bad that we took a whole bunch of kids, 100 of them, because it sent all sorts of alarm bells. So we couldn't know where else to go. So I have to go and reach out to my friends and colleagues in the Westlake area, and move back to Westlake, divide them to 7 houses to get through COVID and to live. And we were living from hand to mouth. Why I mentioned the power to be, and this is the spiritual journey as well, is that 1/3 of funding during COVID came from the alumni.
Wow.
And I'll give you one particular one, a story, Doc, that I told at graduation, which we celebrate so well each year because we're so darn proud of them. Was one girl was she lost her job. She's also hospitality. She's an alumni. She went on her way home to her countryside, and on the way she stopped by KOTO, the school, and she had 12 eggs. That's all she has. But she thought it was really important. And I guess that kind of sort of her value that instilled in her to be able to think wants help others, right? So
Yes.
she stood at the gate and hesitated for about over half an hour whether she should give this egg or not and not be laughed at and be embarrassed and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And she finally got the courage to give it to the security and took off. And then I got the eggs from the security guy. That was the most profound and the most moving thing that I can say. It also sums up about this whole crisis resilient is that when you do good things and your good things can happen and will happen. And it's just we got help that came out of the woodwork we didn't expect. And we survived. We not only survived those crises, but we saw a lot of opportunity. KOTO prospered more than we did prior to COVID. Simply because we came out there, we changed the business model, we changed our mindset, we got together as a team, we work and we don't take things for granted anymore. All that kind of stuff came out of that COVID of a crisis that nearly broke us. It's going back about me being focused again and steering the ship through the most horrific weather was that I've always, I don't know how I did it. Maybe it's true, pure love, is that I kept calm throughout. We were in over our head in debts to suppliers, but we just kept calm. And because the family needs to be fed first, that's the priority. And everything was very, very kind of so in order because we know what's important, what we need to do, how to keep calm, and then to navigate this through this ordeal and still come out the other side with our pride intact and our head hung high because we did the right thing, what every human being, a family would do, and that is to navigate this crisis.
That's the best way to do it, right? With altruism and
Yeah.
give and take.
None of our kids left us, Doc. Never left us. It was really tough, but we all stayed together because that's the value and that's the culture we built.
Well, thank you for sharing how in a crisis we have challenges, but we can also have the opportunity. And in the case of KOTO, you had the chance to reset and to prioritize things and to maybe come up with this new business model, which is actually strengthened. And that's why you're now looking at how you're going to create that ecosystem which supports its sustainability beyond it just being one entity, right, of restaurants and training schools, but have the support of the larger ecosystem. Where are you in your spiritual journey and what is spirituality for you?
I just went to this retreat from an incredible Indian man. It's about how do we shift from the me to the we. It's something
Nice.
I've always done. But it's really nice to have that kind of so be in the presence of so many people who have that mindset, who's going to work on themselves to make it more about the we of this world. Uh, and I've also been a part of the Acumen for Adaptive Leadership training and the Foundry from that as well. So there's always constant way to look at how we can be a part of this community of change makers that we can inspire, but we also together, we can be adaptive. It's very important that I don't go and continue this work forever and ever and say, this is my job or job of someone like me to go and do better for this world, but trying to inspire everyone to go and do a little bit collectively, where everyone has to collectively. Charity kind of sort of grow organically over the years. So you have charity, and then you moved into CSR, and then you moved to social enterprise. And the next hot word is the ESG, environment, social governance, where it's very important that everyone plays a part to our community and our planet, and also to have transparency and accountability and all that kind of stuff as well. So I think it's crucial that we continue down that. And in order to do what we do, we have to be spiritually connected. I don't think we can do it just because it's the right thing to do. And the right thing to do is come from the spiritual within to understand that you have to live your life to be kind, you know. And I think that that's always spiritually, you have to work on that, on yourself.
That's profound. Say a little bit more about that.
I think kindness can overcome everything. if kindness in your interaction every day, kindness in your thoughts. And there's so many things that can shift you so easily in a day because so many negativities around you. But if you treat it and you resolve it and you think it and you make this into a practice, it become a habit to be kind,
Right.
and to treat
Right.
other with kindness.
Right.
Because it comes with empathy, not just in your family, which is part of our Asian culture, but kindness is something is in a community. Kindness in how we interact and how we deal with each other, and kindness in the things that we were given in this world by the higher being, right?
Right.
Expected to not to take care of it. We're a custodian to that, to everything that we are now. Everyone that we meet is we have to treat with kindness because that's a gift. It's your attitude towards things. It's not going to happen overnight, definitely. But if you work on it, and this is where the whole spiritual journey and self-improvement comes from within. If you understand the why, at the end of the day, doc, it still serves you.
What's in it for me is a better world. What's in it for
Exactly.
me is community who's there for me, right? Contribute first, and then everything else will flow back. It's really great that you've decoded spirituality from the perspective of inner growth, us being kind and being concerned about the collective so that we can have a better world. Recently, I did a meditation, silent meditation retreat. What really hit me or reminded me was maybe because I'm also going to be 60 next year, I am getting closer to death or dying, right? Every day you're moving closer there than you were yesterday. So it sort of helped me to prioritize things in life and to look at how I wanted to focus my work and my relationship and everything else in a different way, because that's more pronounced now. For yourself, if you knew that you were living one day closer towards death, then how would you live?
There's a saying that I often tell the kids, right? Sing as if no one's listening. This takes practice, but every day for me is just so full. It's people that I meet along the way, and who I learn from as well. And when you have that kind of sense of accomplishment at the end of the day, it's also as good to have that affirmation. And then in the morning is to have a little bit of that time to reflect and meditate and to understand and give you that little 10 minutes or half an hour to yourself as well. And I said this as though I've been doing it. It's a hit and miss thing for me, but I'm still working on that as well because it takes a lot of practice. But we know this through various books and studies. That's the way to go.
That's right. And do you think it's possible to live a simple life, and how does it look like?
That's a very good question. It's a simple question, but it has a lot of depths and layers to that simple life. So there's a life that you currently been inherited. It's for me is I can't say that I'm sorry. I got to look after me now, and so I want everything to be stress free and things like that. It's not possible. But you can make the best of a worse situation by having a simple mind and just not complicate things. Where you're heading and the plan that you have for a simple life is absolutely something that you should work towards. For me, is that cabin in the wood in Canada and the husky, and go and teach somewhere at a university and just have a very simple life, go to church, and to be able to have that kind of life in the last chapter of your life. I don't want to look back at my work to say, I've been so busy not doing the things and lived my life that I want simply because of my work, because I try to do everything I can while I'm working as well. So I do have a simple life,
Right.
but I can be a more simpler, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Right.
of course. Yes. Yeah.
So a simple life for me is not something that you're not busy with anything. A simple life for me is something that is fruitful and it's meaningful, and your day is filled with joy and surrounded by so many things for you to learn and grow as well.
It's also about being in the present and enjoying what's here right now in front of you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because that's all that we have,
Yeah.
right? memories are the past and what we imagine is in the future, but right now what we can touch and influence is
Absolutely.
really in the present. So if you had to use 3 words to describe thriving, how would you describe it?
Thriving is constant learning, be able to meet challenges and change a mindset to become opportunity. Thriving is that you are better than you were yesterday. Every day is that you become that better person. To me, that's thriving. So it has to be the inner thriving, but it's also an outer thriving. A lot of people define thriving as something that they define in their career or their status, and that's not for me.
Right.
Striving for me is an inner working that you just have to be able to improve every day. And if you're that 1% better than you were yesterday, then you're already there.
What's your from the SDG goals? We talked about the ESG aspect of even the social enterprise, but you've now actually co-founded another enterprise
Okay.
specifically looking at food
Food rescue.
waste.
Yeah, food
So maybe
rescue.
you can share a little bit about that.
There's a very big NGO in Australia said about this incredible woman called Ronnie Khan, and it's called Oz Harvest. It's now operating in 4 or 5 countries now, and every state in Australia as well. So they nourish over 1 million people every year for the underserved through the food that they rescue. She single-handedly changed the bill in Australia that giving is not a liability. So people can give freely without actually being sued. So that means it gives more incentives. Like we know in Australia, when you give money to charity, it's tax deductible. So when you have that policymakers change that kind of sort of bill, that gives you more incentives to be able to give more. There's a woman in Us Harvest who's Vietnamese by heritage. Her name's Louise Chan and set up Viet Harvest. So we did this about a year and a half ago. So it's now operating in 2 cities. Vietnam Airlines, IHG, Action on Poverty, PCFOP, Annam, Classic Fine Food, etc., etc. So we rescue food to currently stage 1. We deliver to over 20 charities now that will be able to be nourished. The next step is to be able to find a location that will go used to be able to convert that into food, proper food, and actually sell it to the underserved, like the construction workers, the taxi drivers, all that kind of stuff, who usually typically eat a pork bun or a bread roll for so cheap. But you can have the same amount of money, but this time you get food, you get rice, you get meat, you get vegetables, you get nourished. But every time you eat one child will get one for free. So the whole country, the adults and the children will grow up in this system where they'll get nourished. The other part of the mission is to educate people, because I'm not sure Vietnam is the second biggest food waster in this region.
Really?
And 1/3 of each household wastes food. And when we waste food, it's billions. In Australia is like nearly 3 billions the economy wastes. Not to mention the landfill, the emissions, the offset emissions, and all kinds of stuff. And then people are still going hungry. And that's the whole sad thing about this whole thing. So it's the environment. When we talk about KOTO, you're talking specifically about the underserved and the street kids and the youth development and urban poverty and all that. When you're talking about Viet Harvest, it's everyone's problem. It doesn't discriminate whether you're rich or you're poor, you're man or you're female. Everyone should concern about our planet and how to be able to sort of rectify that. Use recycle and food that doesn't go to waste. So education plays a very important part in that. So that's what we do. We rescue food and we use the power of volunteerism, and then we redistribute that good quality surplus food. So people think when we talk about food waste, you automatically think that we picked up from scraps of buffets, and people have a lot of reservation when it comes to it's just we're talking about like fruits that have surplus oranges that we pick up and then make oranges, or you go to a supermarket that has nearly another month before it's expired, but we move that along and then distribute. So it's perfectly good food. Otherwise, it will go into landfill.
And I wanted to ask you some quick, fun questions. What's your favorite book?
I would say The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. That's a really good book. He's a corporate lawyer. He just a court session. He fell down and collapsed, and it was a wake up call because he overworked and all that kind of stuff. And then he retreated to the mountain, and then he came back 60 years later as a monk. And it talks about this whole value systems of what's important in life and things like that. So I have a list of book to read before I kick the bucket. And it's like 50 books that I need to be disciplined to start reading. So I bought myself Kindle. I can just not have to physically hold a book. I can do it electronically.
And what's your favorite travel destination?
I look for every special thing in every destination I go to, and an effort that once a year I try somewhere different. So for my birthday this year, I went to Mexico City, and the culture and the art there is pretty amazing. Of course, I love Mexican food as well.
Yes.
So you go for the people, you go for the culture, you go for the food, you go for different. Every destination holds a special place and a learning thing. So there's no one special destination for me. I still got another 100 destinations to go.
And if you can have dinner with anyone in the world, who would it be?
That's not a fun question. That's there's so many people. I would say my dead brother.
Yeah. Mm.
Him and I grew up. He was very opposite to my values because his admirations. He was born during the war, and because he's so cute and he looks like Western. During the war, my mom had to sell off a lot of stuff, and so he used his cuteness to sell to feed his brothers and sisters, which include me. And but when he grew up, for him was everything has to be Louis Vuittons and big houses and fancy cars and all that kind of stuff. It has to be luxury all the way. He works for it, of course, and all that kind of stuff. It was a very different sets of values that he holds, and he passed away from cancer.
Oh, sorry to
He had 4 children. All his kids go to private schools and they get picked up BMW and things like that, right?
Yeah.
When closer to his death, when he found out he had cancer and all that kind of stuff, his wife divorced him. He lost the house that he built. He asked his children to live in a rented house, and none of them would. And it was a very tragic last few years of his life. He broke. He didn't have any money. But for me, I never really understood that. I was always very angry at him. Even when in his hospital, I came back to Australia thinking I'll go and visit him, but I never had the courage to, because I was still harbored that anger. So I never really said goodbye to him. And that dinner that I would love to have with him is to say, I do love you, and I'm sorry that I didn't get to say that when you were alive. But yeah, and it's so important to not harbor anger because it does destroy relationships.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear you. Sorry about that.
No.
If you can have any superpower, it looks like you have lots of superpower. What
I
else
do.
would it be?
I don't know about that. If I can have a superpower, I think the brain.
Yeah.
Tony Stark of the world, Iron Man. He's so smart. He doesn't have a superpower because he's been in an accident, but he created things through his geniuses, right?
Yes.
He can make things happen. And I think that the power of the mind is super important. It can take you to anywhere you want. And if you utilize that more and more, and the power of the brain, and this is the whole thing we talked about earlier, Doc, about learning and continuing learning to improve yourself. And I think that will be my superpower. I would love to have. I would like to be more smarter. If you ever get tired, whatever it is, stand for who you are, stand for your beliefs, stand for whenever people trying to knock you down, you just stand and trying to be that courageous person that you can be. And if you get tired, then rest a little bit, but then you continue to stand. It tells you who you are, who you can become. The kindness of people around you will give you that kind of respect because you're always present.
Well, we've come to the end of our exciting and interesting
Yay.
conversation. So thank you for sharing your life, your thoughts, your inspiration. It's been really a learning journey for me to spend this 1 hour with you. I've
Oh,
learned
thank
so
you.
much. So thank you, Jimmy.